Hey, welcome back to the Enterprise Java course here at Grand Canyon University. In this assignment, we're going to create a simple app, again, using a first and last name form, and we're going to do a submit request and give our name back. But this time, we're going to include a new technology that is included with Java Enterprise. It's called JSF, or Java Server Faces, JSF. So let's get started and create this with the new technology, and you'll see what it does as we go along. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new project. So let's look for Dynamic Web Project, and let's choose a name for it. Let's call it Assignment. I'm going to call it Assignment 2, and JSF is the new technology that we'll see. You can see all the rest of my settings here and click Finish. Now it is possible on this program that we're going to have to turn on an option if we're going to use JSF. So let's go to the Assignment 2 folder and go to Properties. We are going to check in what's called the Project Facets, or Facets, I believe. So we should likely check this mark that says Java Server Faces, and let's click Apply and Close. And so now the features that we're going to develop in the app should program correctly. So inside of our Assignment 2 JSF folder, we're going to create some Java resources here inside the source folder, as well as we're going to create some content. So we'll be in the web content area. So let's go into the web content area. I'm going to create the login form here. Let's go to New, and this time I'm going to use a technology for XHTML. Let's see what XHTML looks like. Let's call this thing the login form, and let's use XHTML as our extension. And you can see that we've been given some default code here. So it looks like we have more than we need, so I'm going to erase most of it. Let's take everything out of the body area. And I don't want to do any custom CSS work, so we just have a body. The styling we can get rid of. And I'm not sure, we don't need the load bundle. So pretty basic page there. We have a head and we have ourselves a body. So inside the body tag, I'm going to create a form. So you might expect me to type in form, and then we would get a regular HTML form. Instead of using form in that form, I'm going to type in H:form, and you're going to ask, what does H stand for? Well, you notice up here at the top on line 2, 3, 4, and 5, we have some strange kind of precursors to our page. It's a header, and it refers to what's called Jsf Facelets. These are tags that look like HTML. You know, it looks obviously like HTML. It has the word form in it. But what it does is it allows the HTML code to be linked directly to some Java objects in the background. And so you'll see those objects in just a moment. But for now, let's take a look at the notes here. It says this is going to render the regular HTML form element. So when the web server actually displays this, it's going to come out as the form like we normally type. So right now that doesn't make much sense, but you'll see in a moment when we do text input, it'll make more sense. I'm going to come in and type in the word first name here, and I want an input form again. So let's search for H:, and see what we have in our options here. So we have input text. So that is going to create an input text box. What we're looking for in the long term is to be able to put in a variable name here that automatically is saved into an object. Well, let's go ahead and create that object, and then we'll come back to the form in a minute. So save replace here, and let's go create something inside the source folder. First of all, I need a package. So let's do a right click and a new package, and I'm going to name this package called beans, and inside of there we're going to create a new class. So let's call it a class called we're creating a user, so let's do a capital user. Let's click finish. Okay, a pretty simple class. Now for our user, we're just going to have a first and last name. So let's put some properties in here. Let's make this a private item, And let's make it a string, and let's call it first name, and do the same thing for last name. String and last name. So let's create a constructor now. So let's call it public user, and let's define the default values. So first name, why don't you put in your name, I'll put in mine, and then the last name equals Sluter. So this will define something when we create a new user. Looks like I forgot to capitalize user. Okay, so now I want to do getters and setters for these things, these properties. I'm going to do a right click, and somewhere down here, I think it's under references. No, it's under source. We're looking for generate getters and setters. And this will automatically create getters and setters for the variables that are in this object here. Let's click OK. And we certainly have them. First and last name, they're all set up. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Now I mentioned earlier that the form is supposed to be able to link directly to one of these objects that we just created. So I'm going to type in a pound sign and a open bracket. Now I'm not seeing the user data that I just created. So that means I forgot to do something. Let's backspace here. Let's go back into the user object here, and I'm going to put in something called a managed bean decorator. So this is enterprise Java. You won't see this in regular Java. Let's save that. And managed bean has to have something imported. So that comes from Java Faces. And then let's save it. Now watch the magic here. If I go back to login form, and now if I type in a pound sign open bracket, you can see that it recognizes that I've got an object here that is a managed bean. So user, and I have a property under user. So let's put in a period, and sure enough, there it is, my property called first name. So that's automatically going to synchronize data between the object in the bean container and the form. So let's try last name, see how that works. And we're going to do the same thing, H, and we're going to do an input text, and the value. This time it says value, I'm going to suggest user, and dot last name. So I'm using my mouse to click on it. Now the last thing we need is an OK button or a submit button. So let's do another H, and I think this is called a command button. There it is, command button. And the value we need is submit. So we're going to create the method here. So I'll leave some space to remind myself that we got to come back. So let's save that. Okay, so now what we need is an action button to actually respond to a mouse click here. So that is going to be called a controller. Let's go back up into our source area, and we're going to create a new package, and I'm going to name it controllers. And inside of that controllers area, I'm going to make another class. So my class I'm going to name is form controller. And what I'm going to put inside there are the methods to handle the mouse clicks. So let's start by telling it this is going to be a managed bean. And that means it's going to be automatically recognized by the form. Let's go import the faces bean. And so I want a method here. Let's call this thing a public string, and then on submit. So I'm going to invent this method name. And on submit doesn't like it, needs a return statement. So right now I'm going to return null. Okay, so this is going to handle the click button. So we got more work to do here. And we'll come back to this in a second. But what I want to show you is that this method now can be seen at the form level. Just like we had a user first name, we're going to be able to automatically assign something of value here. So watch this. I'm going to press pound sign, open bracket, and now I have a form controller. That's a managed bean, so it's recognized here in the form. and then I put a period, and sure enough, the method on submit comes up. And so now I will have an action associated with this form controller.